Welcome in to a brand new edition of the Lucas and Lucas podcast. Lucas Franco alongside Mike. Lucas, we will get to the AHL Eastern Conference Finals between the Cleveland Monsters and the Hershey Bears. Full preview of that is coming right up. We will also get to the Cleveland Guardians 7-4 loss to the Colorado Rockies on Wednesday. Just a brutal loss for Cleveland as they fight with the Yankees for the best record in the American League. We will get to the OTAs involving Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns, but we begin in the Western Conference Finals of the National Basketball Association. Kyrie Irving, model teammate, one win away from making it back to the NBA Finals. Mike, what do you make of the revelation that Kyrie Irving has become with the Dallas Mavericks this season and helping be the perfect Robin to Luka Doncic's Batman?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously frustrating as hell, Frank. It is beyond annoying that he had the perfect runway to a championship in Brooklyn with James Harden and with Kevin Durant. And for whatever number of reasons, I don't think it's one specific reason. I think it's a myriad of different reasons. He refused to quote unquote play the game. He decided it was me. There may not be an I in team, but there's certainly a me. And it was the Kyrie Irving show. And for whatever reason, and once again, I don't want to point the finger for one specific versus another because I don't have the details. But for whatever reason, he was more interested in what suited Kyrie Irving as opposed to the team. And to see him be not only a model citizen, but a model teammate, and as you mentioned, a model Robin to Luka's Batman in this scenario, it's annoying, but he's always had it in him. And I go back to his days in Cleveland, Frank. He was Robin to LeBron's Batman. And he was at his best, floating in and out of games. And when he was floated out, that's when LeBron was alpha peak, dominant, number one option LeBron. And then when LeBron needed a 4-minute rest, there was no one better in the league to help carry a team for a few minutes while your superstar is on the court, not necessarily on the bench, but just as the secondary third option now, than a guy like Kyrie Irving, who is supremely talented. And that's exactly what they've replicated in Dallas. I knew he had it in him. That's what made it so frustrating when he wasn't buying into the team system that we knew he could, because he had shown it previously, Frank. And as annoyed as I am by it, I have to say I've enjoyed watching it because the Mavericks right now are fun as hell to watch.
He does things that you like. Like there was a play, it was a pull-up three, and he was like going full speed, stopped on a dime, and just drained the three. I was like, oh no, like stop ball. And then like before you even blink, he's like pulling up for a three before the defender even has time to react. He does. There's no denying his overall talent on the basketball court. I just find it hard to believe what changed that got him to realize, like, stop the crap and just play basketball. Like, what was it? Jason Kidd? People were saying, oh, like he grew up idolizing Jason Kidd, and Jason Kidd's the reason why he's buying in. Did he need like that person who's screwed over many teams over the course of his career to realize, like, all right, if I don't act, maybe Jason Kidd was his cautionary tale. Not obviously Jason Kidd had a great career, but he
I know what you're saying. I get the point you're trying to make.
So maybe Jason Kidd was that relatable figure that, Steve Nash tried to be but couldn't be, and whoever was coaching the Celtics at the time, Brad Stevens, tried to be but couldn't be. I guess we could spend years trying to figure out how Kyrie Irving thinks, what he believes in. Like if he would have just gotten the vaccine, like the Nets probably or Kyrie, Harden, and Durant are probably all still in Brooklyn. So it's just wild to believe it. I really, it's gonna happen where it's gonna be Kyrie against the Celtics for the championship, and I hate to say it, I'm gonna have to freaking root for the Mavericks in that scenario.
Me too, Frank. I find myself in the exact same dilemma, and I want to preface what I'm going to say next with this. I love Luka Doncic.
I do love Luka.
He is in my top 5 favorite players to watch ever. He is so good, Frank, and as good as people think he is, he's even better. And I mean that sincerely. He is better than people actually give him credit for. His control of a game from an offensive standpoint is on the same tier as peak LeBron in my lifetime, as Jokic, and that might be it. It might be those three in terms of their control of everything happening in an offense, and 9 out of 10 times he makes the right play. So my love of Luka outweighs my disdain of Kyrie Irving. but my disdain of Boston and Boston sports fans outweighs my disdain of everything. So I'm going to find myself, even though I'm not a Kyrie Irving fan, Frank, I appreciate what he does on the court. I disavow almost everything he's done off it. I love Luka. I still like Jason Kidd. I like a lot of the guys on the Mavericks roster. And I think Nico Harrison played a role in the whole turnaround, Frank. I know you didn't mention him when you were talking about what has changed for Kyrie in Dallas. He had a relationship with Nico Harrison. They go way back. I'm not exactly sure if it's 50%, if it's 30%, whatever you want to do. But he is back. And then also, real quick, he's also older now. And I think, Frank, you look at how me and you today at 31, or
I'm
you're
30.
not 31 yet. You turned 31 in what, a week?
2 months.
It's not your birthday's not in June.
It's May
No,
30th. Little less
May,
than 2 months. Whatever.
okay.
Whatever. Continue.
What my point is, like us 3-4 years ago, very different than where we are now in life. You're an engaged man. I'm settled down. Like it, we do change, and I don't want to say that's the only reason, but I do think it's part of the equation. And every time I watch the Mavs, and when I watch them tonight, I'm going to be annoyed that Kyrie Irving's the model citizen and the model teammate, and exactly what I hoped we were going to get in Cleveland. I mean, in New Jersey or Brooklyn, whatever, with the Nets, and we didn't get it. And I'll always, always, always have reservations that team should have gone on a mini dynasty.
I mean,
and we never really got it.
I think we did have it briefly, like when in that initial Kyrie Harden Durant run before Harden hurt his
17 game
hamstring
stretch,
and
Giannis
put his foot under Kyrie. We had it. I mean, that team was fully committed, bought in, happy. It was
that's fair. You're right. No, you are right. We did have it for a little bit, but we didn't have it for enough. And
right,
that's my point.
It didn't last because the next season was the whole vaccine drama, and it was just the worst possible timing. But either way, and let me be abundantly clear on this: if the Mavericks somehow, first of all, they still have to finish off the Timberwolves, which they'll probably do here on Thursday night, but we'll see. If that goes to Game 6, it gets pretty scary for Dallas. And then if that's also assuming that they also can beat the Celtics, which is another tall task, but we'll get to that. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But if the Mavericks do win the championship, and let's say they even name Kyrie Finals MVP, I still give him. To me, like, I don't give a crap what happens. This is Luka Doncic's championship. Kyrie was just a footnote in whatever happens. It's Luka Doncic's team. Kyrie
Let
was
me
just
ask you
along
this.
for the ride.
As you were talking, Frank, this is a great question. I'm going to do this on the show if they win. If the Mavs somehow win the championship, would that make Kyrie Irving the best Robin ever?
I don't. I mean,
because he would have been a Robin.
6 championships.
No. But it not like who's the best second option. He would have been the Robin on 2 completely different championship teams, constructed in 2 completely different eras. As a Robin to LeBron in 16, as a Robin, like you see how I'm trying.
But I think it's different. The Scottie Pippen was drafted by the Bulls, right?
Yes.
So I mean, it's a whole different era because Kyrie has forced himself and failed to be a Robin on multiple teams. Yeah. It's not like every team he's been the number 2 option on, he's been, an elite model citizen. This is something that, people had crossed him off. I mean, when the Nets gave him away, we were like, oh, like first of all, I'm surprised anyone was like willing to trade for him, give up any real assets for him. And then the fact that the Mavericks doled out, what was it, $184 million? I was like, oh, okay, idiots. Like, you just saw what happened.
We laughed at the contract when it happened.
Yeah. I mean, because it just seemed like after, the only guy that could seemingly get him to behave was LeBron. And if he's not going to be with LeBron, then he just seems like a lost cause. And, but I do think we need to, as much credit as Kyrie deserves here, we need to focus our attention on the fact that he is playing with Luka Doncic, who is, as you mentioned, I mean, you could argue right now, as great as Jokic is, I think we could say, and Jokic did win a championship, and Luka hasn't done it yet, but I think he's got the skill set. There's no reason why Luka Doncic shouldn't be a better player than Nikola Jokic. He's way more athletic. He can do more. Jokic just might have better vision in terms of...
They're both incredible passers.
Right. So if you're rating their skill sets, Jokic is a better outlet passer,
better rebounder,
better natural rebounder. But I think Luka gets
They're
like,
pretty. In my opinion, Jokic is the best player in the league. Luka and Giannis, depending on the day, are 2 and 3.
this
So
is so what this is for Kyrie is this is right spot, perfect timing, and
perfect teammate.
he's along for the ride, and maybe he just realizes like, holy crap, like I played with Kevin Durant, I played with Jason Tatum, played with LeBron. Like what I'm having right now with Luka is just as good as better than Durant, better than Tatum, and right up there with a talent level of peak LeBron. And maybe he's just realizing that, and all right, you know what? Wow, what I'm playing to next to is like truly, truly special. Like, whoa, I'm really like blown away here, and I need to whatever everything. Maybe he needed the realization of just, oh my god, look what I'm playing with, to realize, all right, cut the crap, just play basketball, good things will happen. And unfortunately, it didn't happen with the Nets, but it's happening now. Whatever.
One
It is what
last
it
point on
is.
Kyrie, Frank. And this is what I think has been the most impressive part of the pairing between Luka and Kyrie, but they seem to have like maybe it's spoken. We're not in the huddle, but they do my turn, your turn as well as anyone ever in the history of basketball. And when Luka defers to Kyrie, Kyrie knows, head down, let's go. Like, it's on. And there are plays where Kyrie's content just standing in the corner and letting Luka dribble the clock down to 4 on the shot clock, draw in 2 and kick to the. He is doing what is the hardest thing in basketball to do, which is pick and choose your places to attack and be aggressive while also not disrupting the flow. And the fact that it worked in Brooklyn when they had all three. It was disjointed when he was coming back and forth, whatever. With Boston, it never worked. With LeBron, it was the perfect pairing, as I mentioned before. He pick and chose those spots perfectly. And he's found a way to do it again in a completely new NBA, like 2016 versus 2024, 2 different leagues. With a new team, a new coach, it's incredible. And I hate giving the guy credit, but he has earned a lot of credit and a lot of kudos and bonus points in my mind for how he's played this postseason. I can't even hold it against him.
Yeah, let's see them get past the Timberwolves here first. So it would be hilarious if they just collapsed, but we'll see. I do like the fact that Kyrie is no longer perfect in closeout games. Now 14-1, so we don't have to hear that narrative for the rest of our lives. As for the Boston Celtics, a team that will definitely be in the NBA Finals, it's been. The NBA playoffs I think have always been a battle of attrition. Whichever team is healthiest at the end, it's usually the team that wins the championship. And the Celtics have gotten extremely good injury luck with, not that they wouldn't be in the spot if, Jimmy Butler, Donovan Mitchell, and Tyrese Halliburton didn't get hurt, but it's definitely made
they were beating all 3 of those teams regardless. It just made it easier.
Made it easier, absolutely. And I keep going back to the Milwaukee Bucks completely screwed themselves over, and the day the Celtics got Drew Holiday was the day and the Celtics are winning the championship. Like, let's just call it what it is. Unless Tatum gets hurt or Brown gets hurt, like the Celtics they're so complete, and the Bucks should feel like absolute morons. And the Nets have made a lot of bad trades in their history. The Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett trade, horrendous. The James Harden trade proved to be horrendous. But this trade that the Milwaukee Bucks made to send Drew Holiday to Portland and Portland shipping him to Boston, essentially a 3-way trade. The ramifications of that, like because I think that the Bucks were clearly better with Drew Holiday over Damian Lillard, especially when you look at how Damian Lillard has declined. And now you look at the Celtics with Drew Holiday, he was the missing piece. He's so much better than Marcus Smart. It is not even comparable. The rebounds that he gets, his instincts in that regard, defensively coming up with the most like clutch steals like in the NBA has seen in like 3 decades. It's like the steals that Drew Holiday gets are like the Dennis John, like stolen by Dennis John. He is like the glue that keeps championship teams together. And the Bucks should feel like absolute morons, literally, for choosing Damian Lillard over Drew Holiday.
They didn't have a choice though, Frank. That's what you're missing. They didn't have a choice.
Didn't have a choice.
Giannis said change it up or I'm out. They didn't have a choice. You're right. Everything you said is 100% right. Jrue Holiday's a better winning player than Dame Lillard. He's one at a higher level. He's been an integral part of not only an NBA championship, but a USA gold medal, which I know Dame has too, but Holiday is the defensive stopper there. It was a massive gamble, and I mean massive gamble, to split up the big three that had won you a championship in Milwaukee to try and get more diverse offensively and have a guy, which, because let's call a spade a spade. Milwaukee's Achilles heel after their championship was Giannis in the postseason struggles to score when the defense is fully locked in. Now he's still going to get his.
He also hasn't been healthy.
That too, but Giannis is a guy that we've seen come playoff time, and even during the regular season, he's going to score his 30 points, but it's in transition, it's putbacks. He's not a guy, game on the line, ISO, and we feel great about Giannis getting a good look. And especially Giannis, who's scared to get fouled in those situations. That's another part of his offensive game that is a work in progress. So you had to bring in a guy, or at least in Milwaukee's mind, they had to bring in a guy who late in the game could be their proverbial option A closer, which Jrue Holiday isn't. As good as Jrue Holiday is, that is not the crux of his game. He's a defensive glue guy, great leader, more of a facilitator than a scorer. So I get the premise of what they were going for. I understand the ideology behind the move, Frank. But as soon as Portland flipped Jrue to Boston, it was a wrap. It was done. And that was the one thing Portland couldn't have, one thing Milwaukee could not have happen in that trade scenario is to somehow give up all these assets for Dame Lillard, only for Boston to give up even fewer assets to get the guy who you desperately did not want to see on the opposite bench in the playoffs.
They should have had the foresight to trade him to a team and talk to that team and understand, like, listen, if we make this trade, you cannot trade him to Boston. They should have had the mental awareness to do that, because they in that trade situation, they've completely, because Dame in my mind is, he's still capable of being a 20 point per game, 20 to 25 point per game guy. But the days of Damian Lillard being like, a top 2 or a top 5 to 7 player in the league are over. Like, he just doesn't have it anymore. And he set the.
I don't think he's top 20.
I have to go through he's clearly declined enough where he wasn't even, I believe, even considered to be on Team USA. Like, that name wasn't even brought up as a potential option. Jrue Holiday is obviously a lot to be on that team, but
different skill sets, different fits. But in hindsight, Milwaukee would like a redo, considering how Portland rerouted those assets. It did not turn out well for them.
One more point about basketball here. So Bronny James made it official on Wednesday. He will be going to the NBA draft, will not be going back to college. By the way, Bronny James, I know, like, there are other issues with his health and whatnot, but for a player who averaged 4.8 points per game to be so, and listen, I get that he's LeBron's son, but 4.8 points per game in college to be like, yep, I've seen enough for myself in college. I'm ready for the NBA. It's like, it's all, remove the LeBron aspect of it. 4.8 points per game, and he's like, yep, I'm ready for the NBA. And every other player who's like, was more NBA ready, has had better college careers than Bronny, is like, you know what, I'm going back, I'm staying in college. It's like, because literally the whole list of guys, Caleb Love, Alex Caravan, a ton of guys in college that we thought were definitely going to the NBA are all of a sudden not going to the NBA, and Bronny is like, he's like zigging while everyone else is zagging. It's pretty bizarre to see, and it makes it my life good because I'm obviously producing the NBA draft for work. Like, it makes for a very compelling storyline that will be a constant thing to talk about, because he's not going in the top 10 probably. So it will be a constant thing and an extra layer of, because the NBA draft is so not interesting this year, but the whole Bronny
situation, it's the most interesting story. It's the most interesting story.
And it gives us something to talk about, because all these prospects and all the guys that are staying in college, it's so weird. It's amazing what the whole NIL and the whole paying college athletes has done, because in the past, like, these guys don't even think twice about going pro, and now they're all going back to college. It's pretty wild times we're living in.
Two things I think you missed on this, Frank. This is, and you alluded to it, the worst draft class in forever, right? This is a horrific draft class. So if you're not a great prospect, what do you have a better chance of getting drafted in? An all-time bad draft class, or in a draft class like next year that's supposed to be loaded? So if you're Bronny, and this is, I agree with you. I don't think he's necessarily ready to come out right now, but if you want to get drafted, if your goal is to be one of the 60 players called in any NBA draft, you have a much better chance of getting drafted this year,
That is true.
where it's a giant crapshoot in terms of, who the first pick's going to be. Hell, there are guys. I was talking to a friend of mine in the league yesterday who told me they worked out a player who has all the physical tools to be a top 5 pick and the mental tools to go undrafted and play overseas. They go, I don't know what to do with this guy. Like, can he play? Can he? I have no clue. So for Bronny, as crazy as it sounds, I think actually entering this draft for him makes sense because there's going to be 30 guys in this draft who are giant crapshoots, right? We don't even know who the top 10 is going to be. Ryan Russillo, do you like Russillo? Are you a fan?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think
said,
I like Rousseau a lot. He's not as egocentric as JJ Redick. JJ Redick, I think when you listen to him, he talks like he is by far the smart, like he knows that, or he thinks he's the smartest person, and he's like talking down to you. Rousseau like recognizes that he might come across like that, but he doesn't mean it.
I mean, he was on with Simmons 2 weeks ago, and they were talking about the draft when Atlanta won the lottery. And he said he had an NBA GM tell him the draft starts, take the 10 guys out of a draft, and that's where it starts this year. And you'll be lucky to get Tobias Harris with the first pick. So like,
no. You phrased it wrong. It's like pretend like a normal draft. Take the 10 best guys out of that draft and start it at
that's what
11.
I said. Yeah.
Take the 10 best guys out of a normal draft.
Yeah. So my point is, it's a terrible draft, at least on paper. So if you're Bronny, you have a much better chance of getting drafted in a terrible draft than you would in a regular draft. And secondly, if you're Bronny, I forget what my second point was going to be. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Anyway,
the second point was.
So, how familiar are you with Dov Kleiman?
I know he's a joke, but other than that,
Dov Kleiman is the biggest joke on the internet in sports media, in my opinion.
No, he's better than ML football. All those all the aggregators are.
Well, he's the aggregator that like a lot of people like seem to like follow and like believe is reputable. I never follow anything Dov Kleiman says, and no one, and neither I do. After he tweeted about Mark Davis having impregnating Hayden Hopkins, who I've never even heard of until the other day. Like what a swing and a miss. This guy has no sources. He just sees whatever Schefter, Rappaport, whoever tweet, and he just like makes a creative post about it, and he gets a lot of clicks for it. And then to swing and miss like he did about the Mark Davis story is so embarrassing. And it's honestly, it's infuriating to see like him, the way he operates. And the real father is actually Joey Gallo, which I don't know what the appeal is with Joey Gallo, but good for him, I guess.
Baseball player who's tall with a lot of money.
Yeah, you sent me the for the gender reveal.
That was funny. You have to admit, you laughed at that.
It was a good little joke. I agree. The New York Mets had an all-time Mets moment on Wednesday. I don't know if you saw, but
I did.
So the Mets pitcher Jorge Lopez was pitching in the 8th inning, threw a pitch to Freddie Freeman. He thought that he swung. The umpire said he didn't swing. Jorge Lopez proceeded to get ejected, and as he was leaving the field, threw his glove into the crowd. And then after the game, called the Mets the worst effing team in baseball.
At first, did you think he said teammate, or do you think he said team?
No. He 1,000,000% said team. It may not have been what he meant to say, but he said team. There's no question about it. And then obviously he walked it back.
He doubled down on it later.
Yeah, but if you listen to the audio in the first interview, he says we're the worst effing team in baseball. There's no doubt that's what he said initially. Obviously, there's a whole thing about English and Spanish and the whole translator situation. And this is why people whose native language is Spanish shouldn't be talking in English, but whatever. Then he should have had whatever. He ended up getting DFA'd, but he clearly said worst effing team in baseball. Just an all-time Mets moment. The Mets. So I've been watching the Mets because so many people at work are into the Mets. And it was hilarious on Tuesday, the first game of the doubleheader against the Dodgers. They were tied in the bottom of the 9th inning or 10th inning, whatever it was, of extra innings. 3-0 count with the bases loaded. 1 out. Literally, they just need one more ball or one more sac fly to win the game. And the batter, they end up getting 2 pop outs, the Dodgers do to end the inning. Dodgers end up scoring like 4 or 5 runs in the top of the 11th, win the game. And the Mets their season went from being like getting a huge win over the Dodgers, walk off, to just torpedoing in 24 hours. insane turn of events, and the Mets continue to show why they are an unmitigated disaster. But good thing for the New York sports is they have the New York Rangers 2 wins away from the Stanley Cup final. I
I've
know
been
you're
locked in,
excited.
Frank. You been watching?
I have been watching.
It's been awesome.
We'll see what happens here going forward. The Rangers have never won game 5 Eastern, or like have lost. Sorry, they've lost 6 straight Eastern Conference Final game 5s,
Yeah, I don't like that stat.
which is it's a pretty crazy stat.
Change it. I don't like that. I don't like that stat, Frank. Give me another stat. Give me a positive stat here.
The the Rangers have been like continuously outshot in all these games, but they've gotten a couple lucky bounces in overtime, and it's the reason why they're still in the series. But 2-2 going back to the Mecca for game 5 here on Thursday night. It's because Mika and Panarin have not really done much for the Rangers. They're getting like shut down by the Panthers front line. So the Panthers are a really, really tough team. Igor's been standing on his head. And if you have a hot goalie, like there's no reason why you shouldn't win. So it's going to be a very, very fascinating next couple of games here at the very least.
I have watched more hockey this series than I have in a long, long, long time. I forgot how much I enjoyed playoff hockey. And it feels like these two teams, and I don't know crap about most hockey. Like I'm fully admitting that I know what I've seen, and that's about it. Rangers a little more finesse, Florida a little more physical, and it's coming down to like a lucky break or two, like a lucky flick of a wrist and a deflection. But these two teams are as closely evenly matched, Frank, as I can remember in a long time.
Should be a fascinating end of this series for sure. And hopefully for the Rangers' sake, they can, because everyone's trying to draw the comparisons to 94. Every chance they get, they try to find that stat that compares to 94. But like the Rangers have only been in a couple conference finals since 94. So like if they make it that far in the playoffs, there's just naturally going to be a lot of comparisons to that year. So we will see what happens. Last point, Luis Gil, absolutely dominant in May, 6-0 and 6 starts. 0.70 ERA, 44 strikeouts. He's the only pitcher in the history of the Yankees with 40 plus strikeouts and a sub 0.75 ERA in any calendar month. Just absolute filth. As long as he can locate his pitches and doesn't, because there's been times earlier this year where he was walking a lot of people and then he's forced to throw a pitch over the middle of the plate, gets hit hard. That's where he gets in trouble. But if he's got command of his pitches, I mean, my God. The only fear with Luis Gil is the innings limit, because he basically hasn't really pitched at all since early 2022. So and the Yankees have always been so protective of their guys. So when Garrett Cole gets back, listen, he'll let me just check the rookie of the year odds. So as Mason Miller just blew a save for the A's on a Jose Siri, by the way, the cockiest player in baseball. I don't know how close you follow or know anything about Jose Siri, but just go to the Talking Baseball Twitter account and watch how Jose Siri reacts after hitting a home run. Like no one in baseball is as cocky as this guy for someone who's as big of a nobody as he is. So American League Rookie of the Year. Oh my God, he's now the favorite. Literally, wow, he has overtaken Mason Miller as the favorite to win AL Rookie of the Year. Still not super, super close to winning Cy Young, but I mean, the month he's had is one of the best months I've ever seen by a pitcher.
Are you fully bought into the Yanks yet?
No, there's issues. There's issues. There's not many trustworthy bullpen guys just in general. Like on any given situation, and Clay Holmes has coughed up a couple games recently. Like how much do we trust Caleb Ferguson? How much do we trust Luke Weaver's has been good for the most part, but I don't know. Anytime they have to go to their bullpen, I don't feel that true confidence that they're going to go down there and shut the door. I still hate Gleyber Torres. Anthony Rizzo's has cost them a couple games defensively.
Verdugo's been pretty good.
Verdugo's been a great. Volpe has been absolutely incredible.
He's been awesome. Yeah,
his speed, his plate approach, his defense. Volpe's been unbelievable. I love that LeMahieu's back. He's such a calming influence at third base. You've seen it the past couple games.
Like, Soto's awesome. I mean, he's been everything you could imagine.
Soto, yeah. And I just can't stand, like, there's this guy who works for WFA in Salicata who every chance he gets, the Mets are getting he spends anytime the Mets are bad. Oh, that means they're going to overpay for Juan Soto. Oh, the Mets are good. Oh, he wants to join the Mets because they're now competing and they're an attractive destination. Oh, the Yankees, they lost today. Oh, Soto is unhappy, so he wants every little thing that happens. He tries to spin to Soto. Oh, this means he's signing with the Mets. He's so freaking annoying. Whatever. Listen, they've been good. The pitching's been great. Would love for Garrett Cole to come back. Would love for them to get another bullpen arm. Would love for them to figure out a way to get rid of Gleyber Torres. So it's not, I mean, listen, they're 38-19 going into Thursday night's game here against the Angels. Long way to go. Can't really complain too much because without Garrett Cole, listen, before the season, I was very pessimistic about where things were going. I was not confident in the pitching. And literally, I mean, I remember opening day, I shut the game off. They were down 4-0 to Houston after like 6 innings. And I was like, I've seen this movie all of that.
Frank.
And they came back and won, and it's been sort of a magic ride ever since, for the most part. So can't complain too much here. One interesting note before we go, I thought Brian Windhorst made a comment that Donovan Mitchell
I saw this in the rundown. It's not a surprise.
Is the most powerful superstar in the league, and has as much power as LeBron. Basically, as much power as LeBron. I was like, what? Excuse me?
Well, it's supply and demand, Frank. Like, he's not the caliber of LeBron, but he has to make a decision on whether he's going to re-sign with Cleveland or not this summer. And the Cavs, I don't think they're going to make a hire till after free agency. Like, I don't think they're going to hire a new coach till literally they go through the draft and the entire free agency process, and then they're going to pick who Donovan wants to be the head coach if he resigns. So it's supply and demand. When you have a star in a small market like Cleveland, you have to do everything in your power to make them as happy as possible, and that means giving them the ultimate Magna Carta of what they want to do. He is not nearly the player LeBron is or was. He's not nearly the player Luka is. I said it yesterday on our show. He's between 10 and 15 in the league, and I think he's closer to 15 than he is 10. I think he's that bottom half of 10 to 15. But when you trade all the assets you did to acquire Donovan Mitchell, and you don't have a ton of assets left to trade, you have to do everything in your power to keep him there. So, yeah, just because of leverage and supply and demand, I don't think it's crazy to say he has as much, if not more, power right now than LeBron James does. I think it's on the same par. I really do. And it's not right. It's not how it should go, but I just think it's the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think he's earned enough like credibility or like what is he hasn't won anything to I think deserve that. Who cares what they gave up for him? By the way, I have to give you a lot of credit. You were all over the Mavs re-signing Kyrie because you were like, they have to do it, and I was like, you're crazy. So props to you. Well done. And one other note, I saw Stephen A. called Kawhi Leonard the most.
Yeah, what was the context on that? I didn't see the clip.
I don't know. I just thought I was like, wow. It's I mean, he's won a championship.
Stephen A's on a heater right now, man. He's living in Stephen A's world, and we are all just being witnesses to the life that is Stephen A.
Is there any scenario where the Celtics do not win the NBA championship?
Yeah, definitely. I don't listen. Boston plays with its food. We saw it against Cleveland. Donovan Mitchell goes out, and those last 2 games were dogfights to the very end with absolute nobodies in the lineup. Against Indiana, Game 1, they choked away.
They should have lost 3 of those 4 games.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if you play with your food against a team in the West with closers, especially Dallas, with closers like Kyrie and Luka, you ain't winning those games.
So if you're the Celtics, who would you rather not face?
You'd much rather face Minnesota. You do not want to see Luka and Kyrie. You don't. And that's not a prisoner of the moment up 3-1. That's just from a matchup standpoint. I know the size of Minnesota might give Boston a little more issues, but you want to go into a series with the best player. And if you played Minnesota, the best player in that series, you could argue maybe for Anthony Edwards, but it's Jason Tatum and or Jaylen Brown. They may have the 2 best players in that series. I would put Edwards over Brown. I think Tatum's the best this postseason. Brown's played the best, whatever. We could have that discussion. In the series against Dallas, it is Luka, drop, and then it's either Tatum, Kyrie, and Brown in some order, and then drop, and then you could argue how important you think Drew Holiday and Derek White and PJ Washington are. But there is a clear-cut number 1 alpha dog if they play the Mavericks, and his name is Luka Doncic.
I was looking back on it. The Nets were how close were they to getting Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant?
I wish I knew. I don't know.
Because looking back on it, that's the trade that you make. Because I don't think the Celtics are as good if they had, because the assets they would have had to give up for Durant, and given Durant's age and
Injuries?
sort of how he's declined, I
He's
think the
still
Celtics would be.
incredible, but
I think I find it hard. Well, I mean, we'll never know, but I find it hard to believe the Celtics would be in as good a spot now if they would have traded for Kevin Durant.
it's a fair question to ask.
So that will do it for this edition of Lucas Podcast. Try to make this a weekly Tuesday or Thursday thing
Let's do
going
it.
forward. And we'll look ahead to the NBA Finals, which will be set by the next time we do a podcast.
Frank, it's been a long time, man. I missed you.
Peace.